Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Devin and I are doing... What'd you say? You're like, I hate this game.
I'm out.
Are doing a discussion over SHASN, the political strategy board game. Now, to be fair, disclaimer, this was sent to me as a review copy, which I know a bunch of reviewers say that at the beginning, like, oh, this is sponsored. This is not sponsored. I'm not being paid to do this, but it was sent.
But they gave us a free game!
They gave free game! Which is kind of weird, because it's like, why disclose that information if it's like, no one would assume it was sent to you for free? But years ago, so this is going to be a very interesting discussion, I think. Because we're going to argue back and forth. We're going to go over every single card and debate our legitimate political ideologies.
Okay, good.
On this fun, light board game channel. No, I'm going to try I can probably do it. This review is not going to be political in any way. Believe what you want. I really don't give a fuck at this point.
No more.
I'm very nihilistic at this point in my life. It's like,
I'm going to be so racist. I'm going to get your channel ripped off of YouTube so fast.
Dude, no, it'd probably boost my numbers, honestly. No, so SHASN is a extremely intriguing game because it came out in 2021, and years ago I had actually had either a run through and a review back then.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to come back years later, especially because SHASN Azadi came out, and kind of revisit it to see how it stands the test of time. And we're also going to be including a review over the two-player game. We just got done playing the two-player variant. Devin has not played the multiplayer, but I have. So I'll be able to shed some light on the multiplayer. Short answer is this game is very much a multiplayer game. But what I find extremely fascinating about this game is, one, depending on which campaign you pick, is going to be most likely geared towards where you are in the world. Like, we are most likely going to relate to the US one, because we're in the US. If you're from India, you do the India one. If you're from 40 BCE Rome, you're going to relate to that one
Obviously.
a lot. But then Brexit.
Hemlock the thinkers.
And then there's the future of humanity, which is 2040, not that far off at this point. But I find this game... What's also going to be kind of cool is we have Hegemony to compare this to, which is kind of a socio-political economic game. What I find so interesting about this one is it brings up clearly controversial or highly debated topics in a relatively light game. And that juxtaposition between those, I find it difficult to kind of rank where I sit on it now. Because years ago, I felt like it was a lot easier to be like, oh yeah, no, you can just play this and not have a that big of a deal with these questions that you're being asked. But nowadays, everyone's just so angry that I feel like you almost have to tiptoe around who you play this with. This is not a go to the local game store and play with randos game.
Yeah, it's like, how old are you?
Right.
It's like, are you in your 40s? 50s?
Yeah. Are you a boomer?
Definitely not in your 50s. We're not playing with 50s.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's because if this game didn't have those campaign ideology cards, I would not really care about this game. It's simple resource management that you use to buy numbered cards to place in zones.
Right.
That's literally the game. But the ideology cards kind of help dictate it and push it along in a very interesting way. So, Devin, I'm curious on what your thoughts were over SHASN. Not the two-player experience specifically.
Not the two-player experience? If we have to qualify it, then I don't think I want to talk about it. Well, what did I think of SHASN?
If you're going to restrict my freedom of speech.
Exactly. Okay, we're already going Supremo. All right.
That's how you do it. That's how you win.
Apparently. But anyway, I like the flavor of this game.
Okay.
I do. I feel like it was easy to grasp. I enjoyed the questions. I thought they were all very oddly pertinent.
Yeah.
for our current, you said this was created in 2023, 2022?
SHASN came out in 2021. The US deck, which I don't know
Is 2023.
is 2022 to 23. Now I don't know if that was if those were updated. I can't remember if the version I originally played was earlier than that.
Yeah.
And then they updated it to be, which is kind of an interesting thing. You almost have to almost constantly update them if it's modern times.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a few years difference isn't a big deal. But anyway, essentially you have like 4 different personas that you could build up kind of naturally based on, I mean, obviously, like you said, you're trying to gather particular resources to sway particular voters, which are going to come out in a random draw. Of course, the dictating the zones, that's also very interesting. An extra layer, because I was like, okay, even though I was behind, I wasn't super behind, so you got a bunch of voters, but I was able to make the checkoffs for the majorities in different areas. It wasn't that crippling.
Yeah, and you will unlock like abilities. Yeah, you just naturally as the game kind of goes on, it's like who are these nobodies? You start off with like really struggling with resources, and then middle of the game you start really like swarming in resources.
Yeah.
And now the Supremo in the 2-player game is heavily OP. It's like because all it does is restrict one other person. In a multiplayer game, it's like, oh, you have a fund, and you have a fund. I need 2 funds. I'm going to take both of those.
Right.
That makes it a lot easier. And with the trading and stuff with multiplayer, that makes it a lot easier. You can start negotiating. Hey, I have a lot of trust. Do you want to set? I'll give you 3 trust for one clout or whatever it might be.
Let's see here. I like the questions. I thought those were really cool. Helps kind of stir some conversation amongst the table.
Right.
Which is, that's what you want in a board game. You want something to talk about.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, I wouldn't play the 2 players. I'll just cut to the chase. Supremo's busted. Since I went Showstopper originally, which doesn't have an additional resource generating motive originally, and then he went Supremo, so then he just got to steal all my resources in the early game, which was utterly crippling.
On top of the fact that my conspiracy cards all gave me, like the very first one I drew, let me choose the resources from either side. I still got the ideologue from the one I picked, but it's like, I don't need any more power. I'm going to get, more funds that I choose. So, yeah, it very much swayed my way early on, and it kind of was more of just like a biding for time. Like while I had all of these conditions I had to meet, it's like I'm just gonna make everything hard for you while I eventually get what I want.
Right.
Which is the Supremo.
So anyway, 2-player, not great. Wouldn't do it.
No.
Do it in 4, probably optimal. This is definitely a big group. What's the player count?
5. It goes up to 5.
Yeah, I think more would just be better in this one.
Yeah, and I have.
But it's funny, we run off a 2-party system.
I know.
This is I'm like, oh, okay, so one was this.
No, it is very funny because that's why I thought the 2-player was gonna work. Because I'm like, oh yeah, you just play the 2-party system.
Right.
It really doesn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, they got a nerf either.
And for the record, because I know you haven't seen it, they have a specific board to do the 2-player mode. There's also an oath of office on the back of that. But this is the actual for the 5-player board.
Oh, okay. So there's just a smaller one.
Yeah, and then there are these tokens that you can do to kind of also alter the districts. These cards are only specifically for the 2-player game. Which, I really liked. I thought these were cool. They made it a lot more interesting because these are just place where you want to place. And then it's a lot of jockeying.
So this is only for 2 players.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this board is a lot of jockeying for positions. And what's really cool is that as the game goes on and you get conspiracy cards or hell, even headline cards, you can make a lot of really cool plays. Like you did an ability where I thought I had the middle area locked down, and then you ended up coming in and you're like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and buy a bunch of these because I can get discounts and then get more voters. And then with my conspiracy card, I'm going to gerrymander into it and get an extra voter, which gives me a majority. And a lot of this game is doing those kinds of moves to then end the game. And be like, and that's the final one, and I swung that 9-point, battleground area into my favor.
Right. And
the final scoring, which I actually kind of really like in this kind of game, is it's all out there. I'm getting 7 points. I'm getting 6 points. I'm getting, and so that's like I'm at 13 points plus the 8 here, so 21 points. And you took that 9, so that puts you at 23 or whatever. So you just win. That's how simple the end game scoring is. But unfortunately, in a 2-player game, the writing is on the wall.
Yeah,
for a lot of it, where it's
pretty
like,
clear. I mean, yeah. I just don't see 2-player working out too great.
Now
so you got the Supremo where you're removing them, and then you've got
not only do I take
D-list where you can convert them.
Yeah, but it's like I just take 2 of your resources and use those 2 resources to remove 2 of your voters.
Exactly.
Whereas
it's like
Idealist is very good at converting because you can, with discard, payback, and tough love, you can break majorities. But that costs you so many resources, and so you need 4 resources, 2 needing to be trust. And I mean, if I just am constantly taking your resources, that's like all you're doing on your turn almost.
Right. And it's like, yeah, you've got to at least have a minimum of 3 Supremo if you even want to, like, exist. So then you're just healing back and forth.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, unless you have some way to alter the voting cards, where it's like, it develops some
I'd nerf it. I mean...
That's the one thing
maybe,
is...
like, 1 resource or just 1 voter, I don't know.
That's what I wish they did. In a 2-player game, these abilities are modified, because they really don't change much except adding these cards, and the bidding in a multiplayer game, you vote on who starts, which is gimmicky, but it works for the theme. Because it's like a lot of people are kind of going to vote, and you have to have a majority vote. So if it's a tie in a 4-player game, then you re-vote. Yeah. So it's like, obviously I can't vote for myself, but if I vote for you, then that means I'll at least go second.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and vote for you the most.
Oh, okay.
So it just kind of it works. But in a 2-player game, everyone starts with 8 resources, and you kind of bid to be first player. Who cares? I'd rather start with 8 resources and be like, I'll go second. I'll just keep all 8 of my resources. Right. So it really just doesn't work, which is why they probably sell the 2-player boards separate. And they're like, I mean, if people want to play the 2, I guess we'll make money off of it. But you made an interesting point that I definitely want to focus back on, because the area control aspect, I think, is clean. It works. You get a lot of cool moves. The conspiracy cards are really powerful, and can sway the course of the game. The headline cards are just a universal event that might hurt you if you're the one that went into it. But sometimes you might want to go into it because it locks you into that spot. Yeah. You are guaranteed to be in a zone if you suffer the headline. And some of them might be... I don't know. And what's also kind of frustrating with the 2-player game is certain conspiracy cards are disgusting. Like the one that I had where it's like, hey, pick an area where you have a majority, remove all of your voters there, and if it's empty, or if there are any empty spots by the start of your next turn, fill it with all of yours.
Yeah, good luck doing that with one person.
Exactly. One person's not doing it unless... I mean, you could have with like your last turn where you got 8 voters and then you could fill it all up. But in a 2-player game as well with these conditions, if you're not meeting that condition, you also can't take it. But in a multiplayer game, that's like a King of the Hill aspect where everyone is like, oh shit, okay, everyone start filling it in.
Yeah.
So that's also kind of... Which they do take out cards for a 2-player game with headlines and conspiracies, but not enough. It was like 2 from each deck.
Gotcha.
And that one's just kind of disgusting. But I really, really like the conspiracy and the headlines. I think, one, they're thematic, they have flavor text, and they are not... They're broken, but not like... I don't know, I feel like they're not like a big ol' fuck you to like the players. Like with the headlines or the conspiracies, they don't really seem like... I mean, they're just kind of like, oh, hey, now I can use one of your ideologue abilities.
Right.
Neat.
And then the additional from gerrymandering, whatnot. Keep 2, reuse them next turn. That could be powerful in a different circumstance where I can actually get voters.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it's like, okay, great. Now, and the edge case scenarios aren't super clear. I would say this rulebook is actually very bad. It pretty much just describes a bunch of like concepts of the game, and then it's like, so what do I do on my turn? And it's like, oh, all the concepts I just explained is what you do on
Yeah,
your
it
turn.
sounds like, since I didn't realize these were 2-player exclusive, I'm like, it sounds like they just kind of tacked on the 2-player rules.
That's how
Kind
I
of like
would
an
take
additional,
it.
like, I mean, you know, like, oh, let's make this work real
Yeah.
quick. I mean, well, the game, like, the bones are great. This is a fun game.
Yeah.
In a big group, I think it'd be a great time.
Absolutely. And this is one that I still think... Now, obviously, if you're into politics in any way... Actually, if you're into politics, this is going to be right up your alley. Because... and even if you're not into politics, it's a solid area control game. If everyone is level-headed. If you're not playing with, Uncle Jim, who gets all of his information from one...
he's playing board games. He's out there shooting.
You bring this to Thanksgiving. All right, family. That I kind of hate.
Yeah.
Let's all play this political
Let's argue.
game. Yeah, let's argue all day. Because clearly the obnoxious people on social media, they're the loudest, but they're the minority. I can have conversations with people that I know we're not going to agree on it. Like years ago when Trump was first elected, I worked at a factory in the Midwest, and I would, hey, why this guy? And we would just converse, and we went on our way. We had a great working relationship. Nowadays, I might not be as easy because it's a little bit worse, but I've been able to have these kinds of conversations with the ideology cards that they tackle. And have been fine. And I think that kind of where you're saying this game is fun is you can do that. You can kind of have a drink. I wouldn't say get shit faced and then play the game.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you could have a 4 or 5 player group, and then the twist on these cards that I kind of am taking, instead of more of like, where do you stand on Senate filibusters being abolished? That's actually a great example of what I was about to say. Instead of being like, where do you stand? This can also be used as a good educational game. If it's like, what's filibustering? And someone who knows could inform you on that, versus whether or not you want to argue yes or no. And they clearly have a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing with the answers. They're not like...
No, it's very clear which way they're leaning of the 4. It's
four.
like, if it's just pleasant for the good of the people, it's idealist. If it's like obviously a headline grabber, showstopper.
Yeah.
If it's dickhead, I want to control. It's control and power. It's fear. It's supremo. And then if there's money involved, it's capitalist.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the fact that when you're reading those cards, you're not sure what resources you're going to get, but you know generally what it is. Now, not all the time. Some of them it's like, oh, interesting, that was Supremo. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's some where you're reading it and it's like, you're going to answer it and you're like, no, okay, yeah, I'll answer that with the way I agree. And then it goes like way too far, like the one about gender affirming.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, and then it like went way into like leaned heavily on one side. And I'm like, oh, okay, nope. There's no towing the line in this game. It's one side or the other.
Yes, everybody can. And then it's like, no, nobody should and ever can.
Yeah, it was like, should children get it? And I was like, well, probably not. No one can, even if you're an adult. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. Well, I got to answer one of them. But I think, at least maybe not in this rule book, I think in one of them, they recommended, hey, don't answer those off your own political views.
Yeah.
Like they kind of was like, role play it, pick a side, or just play it to game the game. Oh, I want the Supremo abilities. I'm gonna answer those.
You're a politician. It's like, I need these numbers, so I'm gonna go this way.
And it is kind of cool that the game is naturally thematic that way.
Right.
In a game of just these generic
That's a good way
resources.
to put it. Yeah, naturally thematic. Yeah. Good use of gameplay.
Right? For a game that's so clean and simple, there's a lot of depth to it. And it really focuses around... this is the crux of the game. Where, I mean, hell, like... We had this many left to go over. So, yeah, at some point, these are going to be... If you play this game a lot, you're going to see these and you're going to know, oh, that one is going to get me... If I answer no on this one, it's going to get me, the capitalist and these resources. But then it kind of becomes less about the fun party aspect and more about the area control. And I think weirdly enough, they both go hand in hand. Even in today's day and age, I still think this game can now be less of a oh you and your abortion rights or whatever it is. It's less about that, but more about hopefully if someone at the table doesn't know something, you can actually educate them. Mm-hmm. Like whenever we were playing, I was like, what's gerrymandering? It's like, oh, that's whenever they draw. It's like, oh, cool, now I know. And there needs to be more of that in politics, more education, not shitting on someone for what they believe. It's like, well, if they don't know, help educate them. Or if they want to change their alignment, don't be like, well, fuck you. You didn't agree with me at the beginning. It's like, well, embrace that they're trying to learn more. Mm. And that's a win for your side. It's such an intriguing game. Nothing else is like it on the market. And the fact that it's from like an Indian developer, an Indian designer and publishing company, I think they hit the nail on the head, especially for like all the US cards. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing about these cards, because I know this is the whole thing, there are two types of cards. There are the mature content and the trigger warning. Mm-hmm. Now, some of them, because we're all adults here, Devin is, how old are you now, 40?
Yeah, I'm in my 50s.
Yeah. Oh, so you're the guy.
Yeah.
Some of them, which is also kind of neat, you can, if you're, I wouldn't say play this with kids, but you could take out these double exclamation points or the single exclamation points to kind of ease like your child into the real world. Here we go. I'm going to read two examples of both of those. So there's parental advisory, which is the single one. Should there be consequences for adultery? I mean, you were able to curate this game kind of based off the age if you want to play with your kids.
Yeah.
Well, Dad, what's adultery? Well, it's what your whore mom is doing. And then yes, and then no. Or the two, where it's the two, which is trigger warning. Should the military use surgical drone strikes? Yes, bomb the shit out of them. Or no, drone strikes have killed far too many innocents. It's cold-blooded murder. Now, between the two, it's kind of interesting. Which one would you say is the worst one? Like, to read and play? I feel like the adultery would be a little bit more trigger warning.
Well, I mean, like you said, the one exclamation point is parental advisory.
Yeah,
maybe it was more themed towards sex, probably.
Yeah.
And then the double exclamation point's more, is someone probably going to freak out at the table? Is some idealist at your table going to freak out?
That's
maybe.
True.
That's probably what that. They probably just have them clearly divided.
Yeah. So
versus like one's a higher level version.
Right. Yeah. So you could go through the entire deck and be like, okay, I don't really know these people all that well. I want to play a game. I don't really want to start arguing with people. I'll take out these trigger warning ones. Maybe keep the parental advisory. Or, you brought your kid. They're 15. Let's take out these parental advisory ones. No, I want him to know. All right, I don't want to play with you anymore. But I will say, this could just be because we're from the U.S. and we're just desensitized to all these. I went through the India ones, like literally the first. It was wild. Like, what was it? It was a single one is, do you support death penalties? Okay, it's the flavor text is geared towards the India ones because, well, not really. That one feels like a little bit more generic. But two was, should marital rape remain legal?
Remain legal.
That's
and I don't know shit about India, but I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's insane of how they do not shy away from any of which.
Well, they're Indian developers. They probably they want to bring attention to current Indian issues. So
no, and I completely appreciate that because this game I don't think would work as well if it was like baby's first politics.
Yeah, where's our marital rape clause?
That's some guy.
I'm gonna start a party.
Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take my drink. I'm gonna go over here because you know what? I'm just gonna scoop. I don't want to play anymore. It's just so fascinating, and even in those scenarios, that could be turned educational if you're coming in with an open mind, and that's the key, open mind. Where it's like if you play the India campaign, it's like, is that really real? Is marital, rape a thing? And then someone could inform you, yes, it is a very real. Like, you could play this with people of different cultures. And if you're playing with someone who's from India, they could inform you and be like, no, that's a very real thing. It's a constant running rampant. It's like, oh, dear God. What can we do about it? Well, drone strike. No,
drone strike. Surgical drone strike.
Yeah. Which is, so that's when you combine the campaign cards. Which I guess you could. There's really no reason why you couldn't combine the campaigns.
And you'd be swinging all over the place.
Yeah, it'd be, but it'd then kind of be more of a world state. Just for funsies, let's see, a 2 for the future of humanity. Do you support serving refugees with cheap, nutrient-deficient food in order to save costs? And then there's a 1, let's see.
So kibble, feed the refugees kibble.
Or like some dirt. Yeah, some dirt with water.
Cat food.
Cat food. And there, again, there's not that many in the entire deck. It's not like you're just constantly triggering people. Man, apparently there's not a single one in the future of humanity. Which, parental advisory, no parental advisories?
Well, probably because,
Yeah, probably because there is no future of humanity. I'm actually amazed. I thought there would be.
Probably more for the current, current events.
Yeah, there was like 2.
Yeah.
2. I guess because the future of humanity is literally just all speculation.
Exactly.
But they do have more. They have the UK Brexit. They have the US future of humanity, and the India one, and then the fall of Rome, which would be cool. And I think there's a few more that are extra somewhere. But yeah, and then what's also neat, which we didn't touch on, but I've played with these before, you can actually start gearing yourself towards elites based off of your Supremo to give you an extra special power.
Oh, okay.
So like with you right now, you would be an activist. So you'd be the activist, which gives you can actually, the right to information. The tides of change wait for none, we will take what is ours. You can peek at any conspiracy cards held by an opponent.
Okay.
And you can have multiples of these. I would be, right now, the guerrilla. Nothing says revolution like violence bathed in the ideals of liberty. Once per turn, move up to 4 of your voters into adjacent zones. And they're like based off of... Oh, sorry, actually, you would not be the activist because you can't have any capitalists.
Oh, no capitalists.
Yep. And it is also kind of intriguing how in this game, you had no Supremo. Not even one. And I had no capitalists, which both of our political standings, you're definitely Supremo. Everything about your entire being.
And,
anyone whose favorite movie is The Intern, you just put in camp.
Yep, you're dead. No, you're hung up.
And I'm all about money, so anything I can do to just push the little guy down to boost my profit, that's what I'm about. Anyway, I think this game still holds a place in someone's collection. There's nothing else like it. Even games like Hegemony are way more serious and a lot more, I think... that's geared more towards the economic side of things, with a little bit of socio-political in it. Nothing in Hegemony would ever be a debate.
Oh,
like
right.
You would never.
It's a hard numbers.
Yeah, you would never you'd never put minimum wage down and discuss it.
Yeah, you can make jokes during the game.
Yeah,
because it's how appropriate. Because I'm the capitalist and I can't make any money. What the fuck? You guys taking how dare you cripple me with these government reforms?
I can't be a billionaire if I'm paying you more than minimum wage.
Exactly.
But in this game, a card will say, should we raise minimum wage of fast food workers? And you get to say yes or no to that. And you can be like, and you can have a hopefully casual discussion about why no, fast food workers are not people. But I'm going to go and demand their services while I'm just subsequently degrading them. That's who I am. Yeah, this game is great. Not at 2. It is.
Don't play it at 2.
And I would even say it sucks because I really like these cards. But
it needs reworked.
It needed
Supremo or something.
It needed to be more rebalanced. There needed to be specific 2-player conspiracy in headlines, specific ideologue powers for 2 players, not just smaller zones and restrictions on them. And unfortunately, it's not even it's serviceable at 2. You can play this at 2, yes. Should you? No. Literally, find 2 other people, which nowadays is hard to do. Devin, do you have anything else?
Oh, man.
On SHASN.
It's a great, area control with a lovely little party twist. That's a conversation starter. Solid quality ingredients. Farm to table. Table to mouth.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. Bootstraps, pulling them up.
Yeah.
Get this game. It's good stuff.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give SHASN?
Well, I will give a 2-player 3. And then my theoretical 4-player, I'll give it a solid 7.
Solid 7. A good game.
It's a good game.
Yeah, 2 players, I would agree. I would say 3.
Don't play it 2.
It's not, like, the only way I would ever say play it at 2 is if you...
You have to house roll this a little bit.
Yeah, you could have...
okay, if you take everything down to 1, snatching 1 resource, the capitalist, you only trade 1 for 1, but you get whatever resource you're looking for. Showstopper kinda stays the same.
Yeah.
And then idealist, 2 discounts to 1 discount.
It's almost like the conflict card, the portion needs to be modified. Because the showstopper and idealist, except maybe converting 1 voter, but you'd have to modify the resources for that too. Mm-hmm. Convert 1 for 1, but that doesn't really do you a whole lot of good.
Yeah.
The other problem with these cards is if you get the incorrect if you make a misplay, then you can actually lock yourself out of it for ending the game. It's like, for example, the grassroots movement, you need at least 1 non-majority voter in every zone. Well, if we fill up every zone, it's like, oh wait, we can't do that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess we'll just stalemate and call it.
Yeah, short of converting or doing something.
Yeah,
like
then it's
those
just a tug of war
lines.
back and forth, and then it's like, okay, this is just being drawn out way too long. Mm-hmm. But you could also kind of sit here and be like, 7, 9, 8, 6. Even if you got that one, I'd still win. Okay, let's just call it.
Right.
But yeah,
good stuff.
2-player, I'm giving a 3. Multiplayer, which I have played, is I'm gonna say for gameplay purposes an 8. I'm gonna finalize on a 9. Though, because I'm going to give it that extra point because no other game, 1, tackles topics like this. 2, you can clearly tell where the designers are leaning, where they stand, because there's a lot of in-jokes more about certain politicians than older politicians. There's no reference to Bush in here or someone. It's all clearly our current president. But the fact that it's very tongue-in-cheek, that you can have educational topics and legitimate discussions is, I think, a feat in and of itself, honestly.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So yeah, this one is certainly a unique one. So, that's it, everyone. That's our thoughts on SHASN. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.